Welcome to Zero to Hosted episode 2. My name is Royce, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the right hardware to start your self-hosting journey. Let's go. Alright, so in my last video, I talked a little bit about why I'm starting this journey in the services I wanted to host. If you haven't checked that video out, make sure you subscribe to the channel and go back to watch that one so you have some idea about what I'm thinking about doing with the hardware that I get. I want to make sure I'm starting out the right way on this journey, so the hardware that I pick is really important to me. In this video, I want to talk about 3 things. First, my considerations for what I'm thinking about when I'm choosing hardware. Second, the most popular types of hardware that I've heard about. And lastly, just some of the things that I've heard depending on what decision you make. So what are my considerations? First, physical space, and storage and memory, the ability to expand, what I currently have access to, and last but definitely not least is cost. First up is physical space. So I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to be keeping this, and that's a big roadblock actually. There are 2 options. One is my living room right next to my router and modem. The other one is in my bedroom. They both have their pros and cons, but I'm still trying to figure out where I'll end up in the beginning. If I go with my living room, it's right next to my modem and router, so I'll be able to hardwire right into the Ethernet, which I think will be good to keep uptime, at least Wi-Fi based uptime, strong, because I don't really have issues with my router or internet going out in general, so that would be good. If I put it in my bedroom, there's less opportunity to hardwire into the Ethernet because I'd have to figure out how to convert my coaxial cable into Ethernet and then plug it up into the PC or whatever I decide to get. I don't really have a lot of space where I'm at anyway to put anything else. So trying to figure out exactly where this will go. And if it goes in my living room, there's a very small space next to my modem and router. So it'd have to be small. If it goes in my bedroom, there's not really anywhere to put it, especially right next to that coaxial cable. So we got to figure out what that looks like and where it will be. Next up, storage and memory. I'm looking to do this long term, and I think the things that I want to do in the long term will probably use a lot of space, but I'm okay starting small and working up to having enough space that I need to do those things once I've gotten my feet wet hosting a few services. I do have many dreams of grandeur in that one day this system would be able to host local LLMs and do AI based things, but that's a long way away. So I'm trying not to get caught up in that space while I'm trying to just get started hosting one thing and learning the basics. Next up is the ability to expand. Like I said, it's going to be a journey for this, so I'm not needing it all to be perfect and everything to fit in one thing right from the start, but I also don't want to have to be replacing big parts of it as I continue to grow and continue to do this. So having the ability to expand either the system itself or pieces of the system so that it can continue to grow and meet the needs that I have, whether it be from just hosting more photos or if that is the LLM, being able to expand into that without having to replace large parts of the system. Consideration number 4 is what I currently have access to. I do have access to one laptop that is kind of just sitting around that my actual work laptop sits on top of that I don't use. So I could use that. It's rather old, so I'm a little bit hesitant because of that, but it is an option for me and it's something that I could do that would be easy. I could probably get started. I actually don't know if it'll turn on, so that might be a whole other can of worms to open, how to figure out the battery, the charging. Is it going to be fast enough or have the things that I need to host the services I want to do? That would be another thing or bridge I'd have to cross at that point, but is an option for me as well. And last but definitely not least is cost. I'm really excited about this journey of digital self-sufficiency and figuring out how I can host services myself and not rely on the cloud. But it is a journey and I don't want to throw my whole monthly budget away at this at one time while I'm still trying to figure this out if I even have the capability to do this. So I don't want to spend too much money to get started, but I'm willing to invest a little bit just to make sure that it is something that I can do. I have the right tools to do it, and I can move on from there. I've also heard a lot that a part of this journey is being willing to throw money at this to buy the equipment that you want or this new thing, or you want one particular thing to go faster. So you buy this one particular piece of hardware. I'm not there yet. I want to stay very general and really just get something that's going to be an all-purpose kind of tool at this point. So I'm going to wait a little bit to blow my budget on something like that. Now that we've talked a little bit about the considerations and what I'm thinking about when making this choice, let's talk about the options for hardware. First, got an old laptop, which I just talked about a little bit. Then we have a mini PC, and last but not least, a Raspberry Pi. Don't worry, I'll let you know what that is. Let's start with my old laptop. It's definitely the one that I have easiest access to and would be the fastest way for me to get started. Some of the pros are that easy access. Also, there's little to no cost with using it, and it has storage and some of the components that you would need to host a server already baked into it. Having that storage and some of the other specs and tech baked into the laptop is a pro, but also could become a hindrance because it's old. This is probably a laptop from 2010, 2011. So as I'm trying to do newer things that are faster or need more resources, I just might not be able to do that. Another con is that because it's older, it is a large laptop. It's a laptop, but they haven't always been as thin and nice as they are now. So if you were around in 2010, you know how some of those laptops looked. And just like the look wasn't that great, I would imagine that when I boot this thing up again and try to get it working all the time doing something, it's going to be making a lot of noise, which puts it only to be able to be stored in my living room. And if it's too large, it's not going to fit there. So definitely going to have to figure out some of those things. The next piece of hardware that you might consider is what's called a mini PC. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like a desktop tower, but smaller. Think of somebody stepping on top of a desktop and making it really, really, really small. That's a mini PC. It has all the components that are needed to run a PC, but in a very small form factor. And although the general category is called mini PCs, they might also be called tiny or micro. So what are some of the pros of using a mini PC? First are the size. It's a mini PC. It's small. It'll probably be able to fit a lot of different places and do a lot of things. The next thing is that it is a PC. It is built to run software. So the likelihood of it being able to handle some of the things that I'm going to be starting with is pretty high. Additionally, the likelihood of me being able to find a few of them is high because they're used in a lot of different places. And last, they are expandable. Mini PCs are used in a lot of office areas, and they're able to easily taken apart and the parts be switched out without a lot of extra hard work for it. Some of the cons of using a mini PC could be the cost. It's going to cost a little bit to find it. Even if you are able to find it, it may cost you a little bit of money to get. Additionally, there might be a little bit of a steeper learning curve. Mini PCs can be hooked up to displays and monitors, but from what I've seen, a lot of times the access to it is remote. So you have to figure that part out of how you're going to access it remotely. And if you're like me, I've never had to access a computer without there being a monitor right attached to it. So there's probably a learning curve and other things that I actually don't even know about yet that I'll have to learn if I decide to use a mini PC. The last piece of hardware to consider is a Raspberry Pi. A Raspberry Pi, and I mean Pi, is a single board computer that has all the components of a regular computer. So think a micro, tiny, or mini PC, but even smaller. It has a CPU, a GPU, RAM, all of the things you'd be expecting, but in a very, very small form factor. The small form factor of a Raspberry Pi is probably its largest pro. It obviously can do all of the other kind of computer-based things, but I assume, because I'm not super knowledgeable about this to be honest, that it would do it at a lesser degree. One of the cons to me for using a Raspberry Pi is because it is so unfamiliar. I would have so many more questions trying to buy the right one. It just seems a little too far of a step for me personally to understand what this is. But as I was doing research trying to figure out the type of hardware that would work best for me, I did stumble upon the Raspberry Pi Foundation. And I do think it is a great organization doing some good work. So if you're interested, check them out. They have coding projects and just more general information about what they're trying to do and why they believe Raspberry Pis are so important. All right, so that's the considerations that I have, some of the hardware ideas that I have as well. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the feedback that I got. If you are trying to figure out how to start your own home lab or self-hosting things. Obviously, YouTube is a great place to start to do that, but I've also found Reddit to be really helpful and have a lot of people with a lot of different knowledge and experience on there. So that's where I went. I asked this question to Reddit about how should I start this journey? What should I start with? And as you can imagine, everyone had a different opinion, but I'll put a link to the thread in the description so you can check it out for yourself. There were a few comments that did really stand out to me. One of them was about someone using an old MacBook to run Jellyfin, which is a media server. We'll talk more about that later. But that caught my attention just because my old laptop is an old MacBook. So maybe it is possible to do some of the things that I want to do. Another one was about using a service called Image, which is a photo app that you can use and self-host. And they had mentioned something about needing extra RAM in order to do that. So I thought that was also really helpful because those are two things that I am looking to do that I didn't really have context or any experience with there. And it was really helpful for that. Additionally, there were a lot of people championing me just using what I have and starting with what I have, but other people that were saying, hey, use a Raspberry Pi, or hey, no, just start with a mini PC, skip the Raspberry Pi. So I don't know that it gave me any clarity really, but it was good to just get some other feedback about my situation after providing some context to the internet from completely random people. The other thing that the Reddit post has in it is a lot of acronyms. Acronyms get flown through this space in like crazy ways, and generally I try to look them all up, try to get a general understanding of what the person means, but that's what this channel is for really, so that we can break down those acronyms, understand it better. You'll walk through with me on that. So as I hear new acronyms, learn new things, I'll bring it to the channel and make sure that I tell you all about it. So make sure you're subscribed and tune into the next video, because I'm going to be taking my first step into learning Linux, as that has been determined the key programming language, if it's called that. I don't even know if it's called that honestly, but learning Linux and taking a first step into that. So I'll be talking a little bit about that journey and how it's going so far. Until then, see you next time.